Hi guys, sorry to interrupt your viewing, but please subscribe to the channel and like this video. Thank you.
It was a Thursday, and I was sitting on the couch in my worn-out hoodie, sipping lukewarm coffee that had long lost its flavor, when my phone buzzed with the kind of energy only disappointment brings. There it was, the text. A single, dumb little rectangle of blue and gray on my screen that might as well have screamed afterthought. It read, "Happy belated birthday, kiddo. Sorry I missed it again. Things have been crazy. Again." It was the fourth year in a row. Not the first. Not the second. Not even the third, where maybe you could still play it off like a fluke or a midlife fog. But 4 times is a pattern. For is deliberate. For says, I had enough energy to remember Ashley's birthday 6 weeks ago and fly her out to Vegas, but you? I'll toss you a text like I'm checking a box. And you know what's funny? The message didn't even come with a punctuation mark. No exclamation. No period. Just those cold, indifferent words floating in silence, like even the sentence couldn't be bothered to finish itself. I stared at it for a while, like it might morph into something else if I blinked long enough. Like maybe he'd follow up with, "Let's grab dinner soon, just the two of us," or "I miss you, kiddo," or hell, even a "How are things at work?" But no, that was it. That was the whole effort. My 36th birthday, summed up in 11 words, and that's counting the contraction. The kicker? That same afternoon, my sister Ashley, the chosen one, posted a photo to her story, all soft filters and faux surprise face. She was holding a Louis Vuitton handbag like she'd just won a Grammy. The caption said, "Thanks, Daddy. You always know how to make a girl feel special." I wanted to scream. Not because she got something fancy. I don't even care about bags. I buy my purses at Target and they serve me just fine. It was the gesture. It was the effort. It was the obvious, gut-wrenching favoritism that had become so normalized in our family that calling it out felt like I was the one making drama. It's not like this was new. This was a rerun of a show I'd been watching since I was old enough to tie my shoes. Ashley was the bright one, the pretty one, the one Dad used to call his mini-me, even though she looked more like Mom and had all of Dad's arrogance wrapped in expensive perfume. I was the one who fixed the Wi-Fi, reminded them of birthdays, paid my own rent since I was 19, and got a polite "atta girl" whenever I did something that might actually deserve praise. No parties. No posts. No bags. I scrolled through my voicemail, not sure what I was hoping to find. Maybe some trace of a time when Dad had called me just to talk. Not because Ashley was in the hospital, or because he needed help logging into something, or because Mom was worried I'd gone quiet again. But there was nothing. The last voicemail I had from him was from 7 months ago, asking if I knew what kind of computer Ashley should get for her brand deals. Her. Always her. You know the worst part? I used to make excuses for him. I really did. He's under a lot of pressure. He's not great with dates. Ashley needs more attention right now. I would lie awake rationalizing my own pain like it was some sort of overdue invoice I just hadn't earned yet. But 36 years in, the math doesn't check out anymore. I didn't respond to the text. I didn't like Ashley's post. I didn't message Mom or return her missed call from the night before. I just sat there, staring at that stupid bag, at that saccharine little heart, like it was the final punchline to a joke I didn't even realize was being told at my expense. By the time Sunday rolled around, our usual family check-in day, I'd already blocked Dad's number. Not out of rage. Out of preservation. Out of the slow, agonizing clarity that sometimes love doesn't look like a big betrayal. Sometimes it's just the absence of something you should have had all along. Ashley texted me that night. "Hey, are you okay? Dad said you didn't respond. He's been feeling really bad." Oh, now he's feeling? After 4 years of breadcrumbs and birthday ghosting? I stared at the message and thought, what would happen if I just stopped responding? What would happen if the good daughter just stopped performing? So I didn't write back. The next day, she followed up with a selfie of her and Dad at brunch. He was smiling, glass of champagne in hand. Her caption? "Sundays with my favorite guy." And maybe this makes me petty or bitter or some other word people throw at women who finally say enough, but I didn't feel jealous. I felt invisible. And there's a kind of freedom in that. A scary, slippery kind. Because when you realize no one's looking for you, not really, it becomes a little easier to disappear. That night, I blocked Ashley too. Then, just for good measure, I turned my phone off entirely. No more calls. No more texts. No more being the daughter who shows up so they don't have to feel guilty. Funny thing is, I half expected the world to end. Like maybe blocking your family would open some cosmic portal and suck me into bad daughter hell. But nothing happened. The sky didn't crack. My apartment didn't burst into flames. I just breathed. And then I slept better than I had in months. But I should have known. They were never going to let me go that easily. Weeks passed like a slow, comfortable fog rolling in, quiet, uneventful, and strangely peaceful in a way I hadn't known peace could feel. My phone, usually an anxiety machine buzzing with forced interactions and unwanted small talk, sat face down on the counter most days, collecting dust like an old souvenir from a life I was starting to step out of. There was something addictively satisfying about that silence, about not being expected to explain myself or perform some polite version of my own personality, just to keep the family from falling into chaos. No calls from Dad. No check-in texts from Ashley. And not even a guilt trip voicemail from Mom. For once, they had to sit in the empty room I'd always filled with forgiveness. I did simple things. I took long walks without my earbuds in, just me and the sound of wind brushing across the power lines. I cooked real meals, not frozen pizzas, not cereal over the sink, but actual food with ingredients that required chopping and measuring and effort. I even bought basil, the fresh kind, not the dried flakes you forget in the back of the cupboard. And in that simplicity, in that basic damn quiet, I felt like someone I used to know before I turned into the version of myself they expected, agreeable, accommodating, endlessly understanding Rachel. Then the first crack in the silence came, a text from Ashley, delivered at 10:30 on a Tuesday morning like a passive-aggressive ghost. Hey, are you mad at Dad or something? No context. No, hi. Just that. Like my role as emotional mediator had a clock-in system, and I'd missed too many shifts. I stared at it for a solid 5 minutes before setting the phone back down. It buzzed again. He's been really worried. Keeps asking what's wrong with you. Oh, so now they noticed. Now that I've stopped running tech support for the family dysfunction hotline, now that I've stopped nodding through their celebrations while quietly digesting their omissions, now that I've finally gone dark, now it's worth sending smoke signals? I didn't respond. But I did open Venmo, just out of curiosity. Don't ask me why. Some part of me knew I'd find something there. And sure enough, there it was, a recent payment from Dad to Ashley. For groceries, it said. The amount? $300. Not a coincidence. Not when it was the exact amount I once begged for back when my old Honda broke down outside a grocery store during a winter storm and I had exactly $26 in my checking account. I remember calling Dad from the parking lot, crying, freezing, desperate, and he told me, "You've got to learn to solve your own problems, Ratch. That's how you build grit." Ashley gets $300 for oat milk and kale. I got grit. And a tow bill I paid off in installments. I almost laughed. I really did. I almost dropped my phone on the floor from how absurd it was, not just the payment, not just the hypocrisy, but Ashley's follow-up message an hour later. He even sent me $300 through Venmo. $300. Like, that's almost $25 a week for a whole year. I swear to God, I stared at that line for so long my eyes went dry. Because what do you even say to that? The math is wrong, obviously and painfully so, but the ignorance was so pure it almost felt sacred. That was Ashley in a nutshell, confidently incorrect, and somehow still the favorite. I didn't correct her. I didn't reply. I just closed the app and went back to doing the dishes, back to letting the hot water scald the anger out of my fingers. Sunday came, and with it came the habit I didn't realize had become so deeply embedded in me, the weekly call with Mom. Every Sunday, like clockwork, she'd ring me around 6:30, usually with something mild and forgettable to say. Did you see the weather in Phoenix? Or, I bought a new throw pillow. These calls weren't about content. They were about continuity. They were the last flimsy bridge holding our side of the family together, and for 20 years I'd been the one walking across it every time. But this Sunday I let it ring. And ring. And ring. Then silence. She didn't call again. She texted once, a single sentence. You okay? No punctuation. No emotion. And I didn't reply. The next morning, I was brushing my teeth, still in pajamas, when I saw movement through the peephole on my apartment door. I didn't have to look twice. It was Mom, standing in her coat, clutching her purse like she was at a funeral. She knocked soft, hesitant, like she was hoping I wouldn't answer but couldn't live with herself if she didn't try. I didn't move. I didn't open the door. I stood still, toothbrush hanging out of my mouth, heart racing like I was hiding from a predator instead of my own mother. She waited. Maybe 10 minutes. Then I heard the shuffle of paper sliding under the door. After she left, I stood over the envelope like it was radioactive. I didn't open it right away. I just stared at my name, written in her familiar handwriting, a little shaky now. Eventually, I picked it up and peeled it open. The note was short. Please call me. It's about your sister. No love, Mom. No, hope you're okay. Just that. Just Ashley again. Always Ashley. And I knew right then that something was coming, something I wouldn't be able to ignore. It was a Thursday when I finally answered the phone and agreed to meet my mother for coffee, which I knew from the second I said sure was going to be a mistake disguised as concern, tied up in a polite little bow of family obligation. She picked the place, some cozy corner cafe with exposed brick and a menu written in cursive chalk that tried too hard to feel authentic, and I got there 10 minutes early, which is my default when I know the conversation is going to cost me something. I was halfway through a bitter Americano when she walked in, coat buttoned all the way up despite the sun outside, her lips already pressed into that tight, rehearsed smile that always means she's about to deliver bad news with a soft voice. She didn't waste time with small talk, didn't ask how work was going, didn't pretend she was worried about my silence for any other reason than the one that had her practically vibrating across from me. She set her purse down, took a sip of her tea, and just said it like she'd been carrying it in her mouth for days and finally couldn't hold it in anymore. Ashley's engaged. That was it. 2 words, casually dropped between clinks of silverware and the hiss of the espresso machine. She said it like it was a perfectly normal update, like she was telling me the price of gas or the weather forecast, not detonating a bomb in the middle of my afternoon. I blinked, slow, because I knew if I spoke too quickly I might say something I couldn't walk back. To Corey, she added, and I swear I could feel my coffee turning to ice in my hands. Corey. Not some random man Ashley met at a fundraiser or a yoga retreat. Not some forgettable face with a finance job and a trust fund name. No, this was Corey, my Corey. The one I met when I was 19 and believed in soulmates. The one who used to sneak into my dorm window with cheap wine and whispered promises. The one who held my hand through my first panic attack. The one who disappeared without a word, ghosted me like I was a bad dream he wanted to forget, and now, apparently, showed back up in a tuxedo next to my sister. I laughed, but it wasn't the funny kind. It was short and sharp, the kind that scrapes the back of your throat and tastes like betrayal. My mother had the nerve to flinch. She wanted to tell you herself, she said, like that made a damn bit of difference, like there was any version of this where that would have softened the blow or made it less insulting. Like scheduling my heartbreak would have been more considerate. How noble, I said, and I smiled, that specific kind of smile you save for funerals and courtroom verdicts. That smile that means you've just passed a point you can't come back from. I don't remember what else we talked about after that. I think I nodded a lot. I think I made a joke or two, because that's what I do when I'm bleeding internally. I remember paying for both our drinks and walking back to my car like I was in a dream where everything felt slightly off, like I'd been cast in someone else's movie and was only just realizing it. My fingers shook when I put the keys in the ignition. Not from sadness, I'd skipped past sad and landed somewhere darker. It wasn't just that she was engaged to my ex. It wasn't just that she hadn't told me. It was that they all knew. Dad probably knew. Mom definitely knew. And yet they still thought it was fine to invite me over for dinner, to text me holiday pictures of them all smiling, to drop this on me like it was just another update in the family group chat. Like my feelings were a speed bump on Ashley's runway to happiness. I spent the rest of the day scrolling through Ashley's Instagram, not even bothering to hide it from myself anymore. I wasn't doom scrolling. I was gathering data. Photo after photo, him with his arm around her, her diamond flashing in some over-filtered brunch post, the two of them looking like they belonged on a real estate billboard with matching veneers. But the one that made me stop was from Christmas, taken in our parents' living room. Corey was wearing Dad's Rolex, the one he always said would be passed down to the right man one day. And I guess Ashley's fiancé checked more boxes than the guy who used to take the bus to her place in college. I should have cried. I should have thrown something. But instead, I opened my messages, found Ashley's contact, and typed, "Let's catch up. Just the two of us." She replied 3 minutes later. Totally. When? Like nothing was wrong. Like I wasn't sitting in my car watching my old life parade around in her photos, dressed in my memories and smiling with teeth I used to kiss. I picked a day. I picked a time. And I smiled again, not because I was happy, but because for the first time in years, I felt sharp. Not cruel. Not reckless. Just sharp. And ready. Ashley picked the place, of course she did, some trendy wine bar with backlit marble walls and fake plants in gold vases, where everything costs too much and nobody says what they're actually thinking. She showed up 10 minutes late, wearing a coat I knew she didn't buy with her own money and shoes that looked like they'd never touched a sidewalk. I was already 2 sips into my glass when she landed across from me, all sunshine and curated confidence, her tone pitched just right to suggest nothing at all had happened, as if we'd always been close and I hadn't been actively avoiding her texts like they were grenades. We started with the usual fake intimacy. "How have you been? You look great. Is your hair darker? This place is so cute. Blah, blah, blah." The kind of stuff that fills the silence before real things start bleeding through. I let her talk. I let her do that thing where she makes herself the protagonist of every story, from the barista who complimented her nails to the Pilates instructor who could totally tell she was glowing, which, of course, was a reference to the engagement. Every other sentence had Corey's name baked into it like sugar in a poison pie. I smiled. I nodded. I played the part. Then I lied. "Oh, I'm seeing someone too," I said casually, swirling my glass like it mattered, like I was someone whose love life was full and current and worth envying. "A writer. He's with the Post. Does a lot of long-form stuff. Really into politics and culture." Ashley blinked. "Really? Since when?" I gave the kind of nonchalant shrug that implies you don't count time when you're truly happy. "Couple months," I said, sipping slowly. "We're keeping it low-key." She leaned in a little, probably not even realizing she was doing it, her expression tightening in that subtle way that always means competition has entered the room. I could feel the gears turning behind her eyes. A writer at the Post meant something. It meant connections, respect, a kind of credibility Ashley didn't know how to manufacture with filters and affiliate links. And I knew exactly what she was thinking. If I had something better, something bigger, something more real, then suddenly her little engagement to my ex wasn't the crown jewel she thought it was. I let her stew. Then I planted the seed. "You know," I said, eyes on my wine, "Corey used to lie about dumb stuff." Ashley's face flickered, just for a second, but I caught it. The little pinch of her mouth, the momentary twitch of confusion or denial or something more dangerous. "What do you mean?" she asked, tone light, but a half beat too slow. I shrugged again, Like I didn't care, like I wasn't carving a hole beneath her designer heels. Nothing big. Just stuff that didn't make sense. Back in school. Like he'd say one thing and do another. I used to catch it all the time. Nothing huge. Just enough to make you wonder. She laughed it off, of course she did, but her laugh was tight and hollow and didn't quite reach her eyes. He's totally different now, she said. I smiled, not because I believed her, but because I could see the doubt had landed like a spider on her shoulder. It would crawl there for days, whispering at her when she wasn't looking. Later that night, I created a new email address, nothing that could be traced, nothing obvious, and I sent an anonymous tip to one of those gossipy lifestyle blogs that loved covering influencers like they were celebrities. The message was simple. A rising social media personality is engaged to a man with some skeletons in his financial closet, old accusations of tax issues, cheating, and questionable business deals. Might want to dig around. I didn't name names. I didn't have to. The next morning, I dug through my old college files and pulled out the photos I hadn't looked at in years. Me and Corey on the quad, me and Corey at some Halloween party, me sitting on his lap at a tailgate with my arms wrapped around his neck. We looked young. Stupid. In love. I cropped them, adjusted the filters, and created a burner Instagram account. Nothing flashy, just enough to look real, and started following the brands Ashley worked with. Then I began dropping the photos into the comment sections, tagging nothing, saying nothing, just letting the images speak for themselves. The thing about social media is that it doesn't take much to crack a carefully curated image. Just a whisper, just a shadow, just one unasked question, and the whole thing starts to buckle under its own weight. I didn't need to tell a story. I just needed to let the photos breathe. Within 3 days, the gossip blog ran a vague story about rumors swirling around a beloved influencer's fiancé. The photo they used was stock. The details were foggy. But the damage was immediate. Ashley posted less. Corey didn't appear in her stories. One of her brand partners quietly archived their campaign post. And then, just when I was starting to think they might not connect the dots, that I might be able to sit back and watch the unraveling from a distance, I got a voicemail. Not from Ashley. Not from Mom. From Dad. It was a number I didn't recognize, and I nearly didn't answer, but the voice on the message was unmistakable. Rachel. It's me. We need to talk. It's serious. That was all he said. And that was more than enough. The voicemail from my father sat untouched in my inbox for 2 full days, pulsing like a living thing, a reminder that the fuse I'd lit with a single lie and a couple of blurry photos had finally reached something dry enough to burn. I listened to it alone on a Tuesday morning, sitting cross-legged on my couch in sweatpants, biting my thumbnail like I was 14 again and waiting to get grounded for something I hadn't quite confessed to. His voice was low, shaky in a way I hadn't heard since my grandmother's funeral, the last time Ron Wallace let emotion slip through the iron curtain of pride he'd always worn like body armor. Rachel. It's me. We need to talk. It's serious. No apology. No pleasantries. Just that flat tone of urgent control, like a man still trying to command a room he no longer belonged in. I called him back because, at the end of the day, I wanted to hear him say it not for clarity, not for closure, but for the petty, dark little part of me that needed to watch him squirm. He answered on the second ring, like he'd been staring at the phone, hoping I'd finally bite. He said my name with too much weight, like it was the only thing anchoring him to the floor. Rachel, thank God. I didn't know if you were even going to call. I wasn't, I said plainly, because I didn't owe him softness anymore. There was a pause. You could almost hear the shift, the moment he realized I wasn't the version of me he remembered, the version who would have said, "It's okay, Dad," before he even got to the point. "I need your help," he said, and those 4 words sounded like they'd been forced through a cheese grater. "It's Ashley. Everything's falling apart." I didn't say anything. Let him twist. "She's a wreck," he continued. "These blog posts, the photos, the comments. It's spreading. People are talking. Her sponsors are pulling out. And Corey, well, he's not answering her texts anymore. My stomach flipped at that, not out of heartbreak or nostalgia, but from the sheer, bitter satisfaction that came with watching a man vanish the same way he had once disappeared from my life without a damn explanation. Corey always ran when things got hard. It just took Ashley longer to realize it. There's more, Dad said, lowering his voice like someone might be listening on the other line. The bag. The Louis Vuitton. I almost laughed out loud. The goddamn bag. I bought it using the company credit card, he admitted, the words tumbling out like he had to cough them up before they poisoned him. It was supposed to be a write-off. A gift. Promotional. I thought it wouldn't matter. Now the IRS is asking questions and they're auditing everything. I pictured it all in delicious, cinematic detail, his hands shaking over spreadsheets, Ashley crying into ring lights, brand managers ghosting her like she was a PR virus. The business slowly unraveling because of one overpriced purse meant to keep his golden child glowing. It was perfect. It was poetic. He tried to pivot, of course he did. He always did. You have to stop, Rachel, he said, and I could hear the desperation creeping into his throat like bile. Whatever you're doing, whoever you're talking to, you're tearing this family apart. There it was. The guilt card. Classic Ron. As if he hadn't been shredding us to pieces for years with favoritism, silence, and enough emotional negligence to qualify as passive abuse. I'm not tearing anything apart, I said slowly, clearly, savoring every syllable. You're just finally noticing what it looks like when I stop holding it together. He went quiet then. For once, I didn't rush to fill the space. The next day, I got a message from Linda. Not a call. Not a voicemail. Just a text with the words, engagement party is off. We're doing a family dinner instead. Come if you want. No smiley face. No punctuation. Just that awkward limbo between invitation and obligation. I wasn't invited. I was summoned. But I went. Not to make peace. Not to mend fences. I went for the show. I wore a simple black dress, nothing flashy, nothing loud, but slung over my shoulder was a cheap knockoff of the Louis Vuitton bag Ashley had posted with just a few weeks ago. It was too shiny, the logo slightly off-center, the leather not quite real, and I wanted it that way. I wanted it to whisper a quiet insult every time someone glanced in my direction, a reminder of just how easily illusions could be replicated and dismantled. When I walked into the dining room, the air was thick enough to chew. Ashley sat at the far end of the table, eyes puffy, nails chipped, hair scraped back in a way that betrayed how many hours she'd spent crying. Corey wasn't there. A place was set for him, but no one dared ask why it sat untouched. Mom was slicing a dry roast. Dad was sipping water like it was whiskey. No one looked at me for more than a second, but everyone saw the bag. No one said a word. And I didn't need them to. I took my seat. I smiled. I passed the potatoes like nothing was wrong. And that silence, that brutal, stretched silence, was the most powerful sound I'd ever heard in my life. Funny how silence hurts more than yelling. But at least, for once, I was the one holding the mic.